He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got everybody here. In his hands, he's got everybody here. In his hands, he's got everybody here. In his hands, he's got the whole world in his hands. He's even got the gangsters. In his hands, he's even got the gangsters. In his hands, he's got the gangsters. In his hands, he's got the whole world in his hands. He's got Khayelitsha. In his hands, he's got Khayelitsha. In his hands, he's got Khayelitsha. In his hands, he's got the whole world in his hands.
I've learned a lot. At first, I had a biased opinion on certain aspects and certain cultures. I then realized that the program was very important. The program molded me. It made me a better person. It made me understand that we are all one here. We are not apart, we are not divided.
At the workshop I've learned many things, but what I took home is mediation. Because what I learned in mediation, people get into conflict because there are no mediators. There's no person who can take control of the situation and then give them solutions. You see, in our community, we're facing a lot of conflicts, and there's no leader who can take the control of the situation. I think I learned mediation there.
So I must say, I have been so inspired by your energy, by your passion, and by your desire to learn. I am so happy to see so many young women in this place. The future belongs to women, so I want the women to clap hands for themselves. I am so proud of you for coming out here to be empowered, for coming out here because you understand that you can make a difference. It only takes one person to make a change. And you are that one person this morning. So my name is Nthabise Nkomo. I am the country representative for the American Friends Service Committee, which is an American organization which has offices in Zimbabwe, in Burundi, in Somalia, in Kenya, and will soon be opening offices in South Sudan. So we are in 35 countries across the world. We are present in Latin America, so that's the southern part of America. We are also present in Asia. We are also present in the USA and in the Middle East. So our relationship with South Africa dates back to before the apartheid era. So the Quakers that Rommel spoke about, who we are a part of, we're very active in facilitating dialogue through peace practitioners such as Bill Sutherland. He's deceased now, and he was able to work using mediation and negotiation to bring the aggrieved parties together until you reached the peace settlement of South Africa. We went on to establish our regional office here in South Africa in Pretoria. So that was in the early 2000s. And we worked here with South African communities until we relocated to Nairobi, Kenya, where our regional office is. And we moved upwards because we wanted to be more central and reachable to the Horn of Africa and Southern Africa. And most recently, I was very happy to see Dr. Zambara, who was at the back there. American Friends did another dialogue and exchange program. If you see here, we're calling this the Prevention of Election Violence. It's a dialogue program that seeks to facilitate us talking to one another, using communication as opposed to violence and armory, to solve problems. So the American Friends Service Committee, 2013, took the Peace and Reconciliation Commissioners from Burundi and brought them here to South Africa so they could learn from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of South Africa. So they underwent a study tour. They were taught, how do you do truth? How do you do hearings? How do you do reconciliation, repatriation? We learned from South Africa, and we were able to export this knowledge to Burundi. And then in 2015, the Burundi commissioners came back again to learn the second time around. And right now, Zimbabwe has a National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, and we're still learning from the experiences of South Africa. So never underestimate the tough situations that you go through. They become somebody else's lessons. We begin to learn from you and your experiences how not to fall in the same traps. So this training that you have done over the last couple of days, we are learning from you how to bring communities together, how to work with youth, how to facilitate, how to empower communities for their ability in Zimbabwe and in other African countries to be able to do the same. So today, in partnership with the Peace Center, I want to thank Rommel, sincerely, together with his team from Peace Center, for all the running around that they've been doing to put this all together. I want us to give them a warm round of applause, of appreciation. Come on, South Africa, you can do better than that. Yes, thank you so much.
So I've learned the importance and the value of voting, because young kids, they don't know how important voting is, and then they yet let old people take decision for them, because it's becoming a norm to old people taking a decision for young people. I think we should use this platform as an advocacy to tell people, especially young people, that how much importance voting is, and then what value does it have, voting, and then what can you achieve by voting, because we are electing a government nationally and locally and provincially, and then those governments are taking decisions for us, but we are not there to elect them. So we must elect the right people who will take decisions for us, the right decision that we want, and meet our demands.
We did a survey to understand, like, are you going to vote? Are you not going to vote? Why did you register for voting if you are going to vote? And people were like, no, we're just voting for the sake of voting because we are told to vote. And so after the training, people were very interested, and they knew why it was important for them to actually participate in the elections.
As the Peace Center, we were concerned about two things with the 2019 elections. One was, it was obviously the most important election in our democratic history since 1994. And we were concerned that there were large numbers of first and second time voters who said they were not going to vote. And we felt it was important for young people to understand how democracy works and why it's important for them to vote. So that was the beginning of thinking, what could we do around the elections? But then we were also concerned that this was going to be a particularly acrimonious election. There were lots of issues that people were struggling with, and levels of violence have risen due to corruption, due to feelings that the government has abandoned people, that the government doesn't have people's best interests at heart. The opposition parties, the two biggest ones, obviously the DA and the EFF, were not necessarily helping matters. The DA has its own issues and its own scandals and its own baggage. And the others, EFF and other smaller parties, were quite aggressive in what they said and how they spoke about people, and we were just worried that this could actually lead to violence on the day of the elections. So we approached an organization called the American Friends Service Committee, AFSC, which is a Quaker-based group which is based in Philadelphia in the United States, but has a very significant African wing with a head office in Nairobi and offices in about 20 other African countries. And their primary interest is preventing election violence in Africa. So they provided the funding two phases, phase 2 and phase 3, of what was a 4-phase process. The first phase was a consultation with the community to identify potential trainees. The second phase was the training of the lead facilitators, there were 60 of them. The third phase was the training of the full group of all 300. And the fourth phase was deploying those people to 90 polling stations in Khayelitsha and Mitchells Plain on election day, which was a logistical nightmare, but with lots of support from a lot of different people, we managed to pull it off.
And the issue of violence has been a spectre in these communities, both Khayelitsha and Mitchells Plain. We work in both. And for me, and with the elections coming up in the atmosphere, it was important to build up a whole leadership, not just for the elections, but beyond the elections as well, and using the elections as an example where we could train and to rediscover leadership that's in our midst.
Before I came here, it was actually educating to come here, because before the training I didn't know how to resolve violence. I didn't know how to resolve and mediate before I came here. So for me, this was very educating.
I was one of the people that went around to all the stations wherever there was a need. Yes, there was violence, but fortunately for us, it wasn't physical. There was no real physical violence. It was all respect in relation to political. Yes, one party fighting off with the next. So yes, that was. But thank you, and thank you to Peace Centre again for the training that they've provided, because the people at the stations, the monitors, were able to handle it quite beautifully, and by the time that we were able to react to it, they've already resolved whatever violence there was. So yes, and for that we are very glad, because it means that what we did during the training worked, and they could take it to heart, and that is something that nobody can take away from them. They can be able to enforce it anyway.
And today's event is just the conclusion, where we've handed out the certificates to all of the people that participated, and have spent some time discussing with them how we can all work together in the future, so that we don't lose this impetus and all this work and all of this experience that people have now gained. Of course, there are again local elections in about 18 months, and we hope to draw them in at that point again. But even before that, one of the purposes of today was to ask people where they think we could work with people who were trained in the Mitchells Plain community, in the Mitchells Plain community. And a big thing that has come out of that is violence in schools. And we do know that violence in schools is a significant problem. We also know that the Department of Education is taking it more seriously these days than it used to. And so we're hopeful that we can work with the Department of Basic Education in the Western Cape and the volunteers who were trained for this election work to actually start working in schools with promoting peace, against bullying, against harassment, against violence, and slowly start to change how people see their role in prevention. Because in the end, everybody involved in a situation where there's potential violence can make one of two decisions. They can either make it worse or they can make it better. We want to increase the number of people who try to make it better.
In his hand, he's got the whole world in his hand. He's got everybody here. In his hand, he's got